you as the next motherfucker. Don't 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 go for that. You have to work.
You saying I can't sit on my couch and talk shit about everybody else and expect to be saved?
I consider myself very blessed and lucky because I think that if you can make a living doing what you love, especially in the arts, you've won. Because majority of these people go to their grave having worked the job they hated all their life. But they're responsible adults, so they're going to do what they got to do to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table, clothes on backs. But with the exception of their family, there's no joy in that. But when you are doing what you love, it's not a job anymore.
Well, I mean, talking about creating your own path as one of the most powerful independent filmmakers, you still did start to work with others because you wanted to. And I don't know if people understand the effect of when how you decided and they decided. I was just talking about how Nike's groundbreaking. They You shot many of the Jordan commercials and you were in there.
Yeah,
And you were very
I played the character Mars that was from She's That Have It
right.
with Michael.
And that could be considered very polarizing at the time because of your
My
passion. Because
no,
you know, think about it, Nike going, we're gonna get a black director.
no, that was there was no polarization with the commercial I did with Michael Jordan. That catapulted. I mean,
It
Nike
did,
the
but what I'm
stratosphere.
saying is a lot of public people who did not necessarily understand or want to appreciate certain art was like, why would you do that? Why don't you just go to a big old director like everybody else? Why this individual? But then you set Nike on a path.
What happened was, for those who might have seen the commercials, the character I played, Mars, was in She's Gonna Have It, and Mars wore
There's
Jordans.
nobody in here who hasn't seen that commercial for sure.
So even when Mars was in the bed with Nola Darling, he didn't take his Jordans off. And two individuals at Wyden Kennedy, the advertising agency for Nike, saw She's Gotta Have It, and they got the idea to pair Mars with Michael Jordan. So there was one hitch. Michael had final say on the director, and they went to Michael. Michael not he did not heard of the film. He did not who I was, and it wasn't until the All Star game in Toronto. I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago. It was cold that I finally got enough courage to ask Michael after all these years, why did you select me to be in this commercial with you and direct you? And he said, motherfucker, you wearing my shoes. So I've had the honor of Michael Jordan call me MF for many, many times. But think about this. He could have gotten any of the big Madison Avenue
Hmm.
directors.
You're in the, I would think, the hardest industry in the world. You know, you made She's Gotta Have It in 1986 for $175,000. You raised that money, and that money ended up earning $7 million at the box office. But
8.5.
8.5. Well, don't get it messed up. 8.5 by a young man in Brooklyn with no money. He can't go and put little shorts on social media like you can now and send it around the world.
Different world. I know that today's generation has a much easier path to get there because of technology.
Right.
People are making feature films on their phones,
Feature films.
feature films, and they edit it on their laptop. I mean, we didn't have the technology. We had to shoot film.
How did you get $175,000?
Well, it was a miracle. but all jokes aside, I finished Morehouse in I finished Morehouse in 1979 and went straight to film school at NYU. Came home, and is it there that I learned my craft as a filmmaker? And while I was there, I met my brother's name's Ernest Dickerson. Ernest went to Howard. I went to Morehouse, so he was the best cameraman in school.
Hmm.
So we hooked up. So Ernest shot all my films at NYU. Then She's Gonna Have It, School Days, Do the Right Thing, Mo Better, Jungle Fever, Malcolm X.
Wow.
And then he went on to direct Tupac and Juice.
Wow.
But right away, we first came to NYU, there was a bomb because we went to black schools. So we had a plan. We knew that we could do this together. The money was raised in stages. Now, this is before digital technology. So the first stage was to shoot the film. Second stage, we get the money out the lab, go shoot and film. The third stage was very critical, was me to raise money where I could edit the film but still have enough to.
How many no's and how long did that time take to raise that and get that?
Well, we were doing it in stages.
Okay.
So
How long were those stages, you think?
7, 8 months.
Okay.
So I was confident in the film. If I could get the money to edit it, then I could have screenings for investors. And so we raised money. I have to give a shout out to my man, Earl Smith. Earl and I went to high school. I went to John Dewey High School in Coney Island. Earl's mother had just died. He had a check for insurance from his mother's death for $15,000. And he gave me that. He said, Spike, take it for the movie.
Mm.
This was 19, She's Gonna Have It came out in 1986.
Mm-hmm.
He is still receiving residual checks from that. And on top of that, he was able to buy a brownstone at Fort Greene.
Yeah.
So
Angel investor.
I didn't ask him. And I didn't want to take the money.
He believed in you though.
And then I can't leave out my grandmother. My grandmother put me through Morehouse and also NYU Graduate Film School.
Mm.
She gave me the seed money for my thesis film, Joe's Bedside Barbershop. We cut heads, and also the seed money for She's Gonna Have It. Now, this is key. I would not here be in the stage if I didn't have the support from my family. And knowing where we are as a people, where we've come from, there's a tendency amongst black parents to discourage their sons and daughters from being in the arts because it's not guaranteed. So they tell you, go to college, a lawyer, a doctor, you know, in business. We succumb to parental pressure and choose a path, which is not what you want to do. And many years later, you end up hating your parents because you're miserable, you're working at a job that you hate. But they believed in me, like a lot of other people, and I was able to, make a path my way. But I have to say, for the parents in the house, please don't kill your children's dreams. Encourage them.
Thank you for that game changer point and that conversation. And thank you to the General Insurance for having this conversation. And more importantly, thank you to Spike Lee for breaking down boundaries and constantly educating us and representing New York at its fullest. Give it up for Spike Lee.
Hello.
Spike Lee at the Apollo, ladies and gentlemen. If that isn't Black excellence, I don't know what is. Coming up, we still have a ton of celebs and business moguls to meet. And don't forget, more NAACP grants to give away. Now, speaking of businesses, did you know Daymond hand-selected a few Black-owned businesses to feature on our website? Together with Shopify, you can check out Daymond's BED picks on blackentrepreneursday.com. Okay, y'all, now please join me in welcoming Melanie Parker, the Chief Diversity Officer for Google, and a true icon when it comes to entrepreneurship, women's empowerment, and support for minority-owned businesses. Take it away, Daymond.
All right, so thank you so much, Melanie, for being here. Now, Chief Diversity Officer, that is a huge role. How did you get to that point of being the Chief Diversity Officer of Google?
Well, I'll tell you, my career up to now has really been about purpose and finding roles that have purpose. And it's really the evolution of all the roles that I've had that culminated, one, in me coming into tech industry, and two, leading in the role that I have.
If anybody looks it up, it's no secret. Google has always been on the front end of breaking down barriers and addressing everyone. This is your first year at BED. Thank you for being here. What drives you and Google to want to do this?
Well, first, thank you for having us and for allowing this space. And so when we think about everybody that's here, our entrepreneurs, our investors, it's really important that we continue to provide a space to create not just community, but education and partnership. And at Google, one of the things that I'm most proud of is really building systemic interventions that address systemic and structural barriers. So it's really important to be here with you because now is the time to continue to invest for the long-term sustainability.
We're going into a place in an area where a lot of companies are wondering, oh, can I deal with retail? Do I have to cut back X amount of employees? Gas is at all-time high. And so when they decide, a lot of them, to cut back and scale back certain programs, it's not a personal thing. They have to slash and burn a lot of different line items, right? But you and Google, on the other hand, is saying we're investing for the long term, right? A Band-Aid is just go out and hire as many people in this area, but if you don't give them enough knowledge, well, then you're setting them up for failure. And I know Google has been doing that with founders. What other things are you doing like this to help, bring further people up the ladder and nurture them?
Our goal has been to build sustainable equity both internally and externally. So in addition to our Black Founders Fund, we have digital skills training. So we have an initiative called Black Women Lead. We work with the Divine Nine, the Links Incorporated, and Dress for Success. We also have a certificate program where for non-degreed individuals, you can access like over 25 different career certificate programs. We run through Coursera.
Is that for people that work within your system or for everybody?
No, that's for everybody.
So all these resources
So
out
all
there.
of these resources are at no cost and are designed to be helpful to ensure that we're doing our part of the collective to build equity and sustainability.
So you have everything from actually a fund for just Black founders.
For just Black founders.
Then you have one for women.
We have one for women. We have one for the Latino community as well.
Okay.
And we've just gone global.
If I'm home and I'm watching this now and I see us both up here, am I intimidated going, well, I got to go to college to get that tech job? What would you say? Is that a necessity?
I would say be encouraged, and the career certificate programs that I just referenced are available at no cost, and we partner with Coursera to run that certificate program. So you don't have to be degreed to do that. And when you complete that, whichever certificate program you choose, you're not just eligible for roles at Google, you're also eligible for roles at over 150 other employers. So we have a whole network that we've assembled of companies that will accept these certificates.
When we talk about this opportunity for all these positions and maybe being an entrepreneur and opening a business, there are a lot of people who are rightfully going to say, Daymond, look at the numbers, right? We traditionally don't have access to capital. Even if we do have that, it's at a highest interest rate. There's a lot of things systemically that have been historically in place. It makes it harder for us. Come on, are you serious? What do you say to those people that rightfully so are very skeptical about how they can advance what we're talking about?
I would say that historically in Black community, we've always done well as entrepreneurs. I mean, look at Madam C.J. Walker and what she was able to do in that time frame. So we've always been able to make opportunity where it wasn't historically available. I think it does make programs like what we're doing at Google like very relevant to ensure that we're not just giving access to capital, but we're also giving access to the network, to the advisors, and allowing people to get even more capital based on that network. And the other thing I would say is that if I look at our historically Black colleges and universities, I was recently at Hampton University, they have an entrepreneurship major. That wasn't available when I was at Hampton. So there are more accesses even for young people as they're coming up to go into, you know, that entrepreneurial path.
What would be the advice you would give to not an entrepreneur or maybe somebody who wants to get into tech in that situation to another person of color working in one of the largest corporations in the world? What would you say to the other Melanies of the world who are the ones who want to be Melanie?
With an entrepreneurial mindset, like go to work as an owner, approach that. So it's not as much about position, but about purpose. When you act like an owner, you show up differently.
That's true. You know, I tell everybody, you know, I have a lot of great people that work for me, but I want them to act like an owner and tell me what to do, because why hire them if they're not smarter than me? Still a lot of work behind that. You have to be able to convey and present this information to the Melanies, and Melanie has to do it to whoever she reports. So you have to do it in a way that can be useful and take it step by step and actually can improve. And when you have an opportunity to go someplace where they do understand your value, you are passionate about it, well, then you're more prepared.
Well, the other thing that happens when you act like an owner is you add in, not fit in. And we need to add into spaces, not fit into spaces. And I think, you know, that's a cultural shift and a mindset change for some of us, that we're not looking for places where we fit. We're looking for places where we add. And owners know the superpowers that they bring. They know the purpose that they're following. And I think that's the other part of that mentality.
Well, then you make the boss's job easier, and you may actually come up with different streams of revenue. You know, I know that Gmail and Google Maps came out of employees just thinking of some stuff on the side,
It's
and
exactly right.
now look, and it's in all of our lives right now.
That's right.
One person with one idea that took one action. So, Melanie, thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge, but more importantly, bringing all the assets and the resources that Google has to everybody out into the world, supporting Black Entrepreneurs Day and doubling down on educating, you know, families and individuals alike and giving this opportunity. So thank you and Google so much for being here, and I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
One of the biggest advantages is just the plethora of products.
It's a hub. Everything is in one place. I see the reviews for the different companies. I'm able to communicate on the spot with the companies.
They speak in their language. They're able to figure out exactly what you need. You know, they give you samples. They make sure that you can't cheat the process.
And you can customize them and make them look and fit with your brand. So there's so many things that you can do and really customize and make them your own.
Without Alibaba, that platform, you know, this company, we could probably have made it happen, but it took us a lot longer.
Welcome, everybody. I am Daymond John, and today I'm speaking to Tracy Nicole of Tracy Nicole Clothing. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you and the line and how you came up with it, where are you at today, and all that good stuff.
When I was a little girl, I wanted to be a fashion designer. I used to love to look at the magazines and the fashion shows on TV. And I remember in high school telling my mom I wanted to be a fashion designer. Fast forward, I started making things at home at the kitchen table, having little trunk shows at the house, selling things and getting feedback on my clothing. I was ready to start my clothing line. I got my confidence up, I studied, and then I get a diagnosis of breast cancer. What I remember the most was the outing that I had every week was going to the doctor, and I just wanted to look good. You know, I couldn't control what was going on inside, but I could control the outside. And I learned very early how you look makes you feel a different way, and I had to adapt my own clothing. So you can see where I'm going with this. I ended up being asked by Dr. Jackie from Married to Medicine to adapt some clothing for cancer patients for her, which led to big fashion show doing a collection for cancer patients, and I started working on my own collection. And I said, I'm just ready. I survived cancer. What can I do now?
Right.
So I started working on this collection and decided to launch. And I launched online because I didn't have the money to launch, in person. And at midnight, we sold out. And that's all I needed to see. So from then on, every year it's been growing. Every year it's just been profitable. And here I am now talking to Daymond John. So how much better can it get?
You're an example of how people can overcome so many different obstacles.
Thank you, Daymond. You've been a great inspiration.
No, thank you.
My mother, Big Mama, learned how to make something out of nothing.
There are a million people in the world with business plans sitting on a hard drive.
It's about finding your spot and nurturing that opportunity.
Don't let the fact that you've never done something before keep you from doing something.
I decided to not let those systemic barriers stop me.
It's a story of how generations are changed forever if we don't get education right.
There is something so big here. It's just motivated me to do more.
When we didn't have anything, the things that got us through, the things that were valuable were our songs, our dances, right? If that's what we know best, let's teach people business through that.
If you're not at the table, you will be the dessert. Hell no. We want to be at the table now.
All right, and now let's get into our next round of NAACP Power Shift Grant winners. All right, next up, we have Yves Perez. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here representing